Hi, Scalable Investors. Today I have with me Mark Willis. Mark is the founder of Lake Growth Financial Services over in Chicago, and he's also a #1 best-selling author of 3 different books. I'll post the link to those books in the episode description for you to take a look. And Mark's also the co-host of Not Your Average Financial Podcast. So today we're going to be digging into a lot of different interesting aspects of your own personal finances and how you can maximize that to use in your commercial real estate investing deals. So I think it's going to be really valuable information. Excited to have you on, Mark. How is it going today?
Yeah, thanks, Mason. Yeah, going great. Can't complain, man. Every day above ground is another day in paradise.
All right. It's good to be alive, you know?
Yeah, beats the alternative.
Yes, definitely. Unless you're living like in an underground bunker, like yes.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mason. I was actually, I know it's random start to the episode here, but I was reading an article. Wall Street Journal was telling us that several billionaires have activated their end of the world nightmare scenario planning regimens. In other words, they hit the red button on their desk and got sucked underground to their billionaire cave where when the coronavirus hit our shores, they were like, we're out of here. And they literally have underground bunkers. Some of them are in New Zealand. Some of them are in Indiana, of all places. And that's where they've been living and like holding out amidst the pandemic we've all been going through. So first things first, let's get this out of the way. Billionaires, if you hear us, if you're listening to this podcast, the world did not end. You can come back. We're going to be okay. But anyway, it relates actually some to a financial philosophical point, which is if you're underground when the world recovers, you do not participate in the recovery. To say that another way, if you just hide your money under the mattress right now, you're not going to experience the rebound growth that will inevitably happen, whether it's this month or next year or whenever the rebound happens. So you have to be out of that bunker. You need a bunker for scary times, but you got to be ready to jump fast and be ready when you see deals. So how about that for a transition, Mason?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it brings up a good point because I feel like a lot of people are getting this anxiety like, oh, this is like the bottom of the stock market. I got to just jump in. And this is right at a time where I'm like yelling at the top rooftops that, no, this is like commercial real estate investing. This is what you got to do. And
Mhm.
so from what you're saying, getting into the market and participating in that recovery, you're saying from a real estate perspective, or what do you
Well,
mean?
what I mean is be aware of deals in your area of expertise. And that might be your real estate neighborhood. Don't invest in things that you don't understand, I guess is what I'm saying. But be ready to sit on your hands until you see that right deal. But don't be caught off guard or underground when you do see that great opportunity. Here's what I mean. Too many people were caught flat-footed when this pandemic started. So let's talk about that. And too many people aren't going to be able to participate in the recovery because they don't have enough liquid cash to dive into a great storage unit, for example, if they see a great deal, because they didn't have enough liquid cash. To me, that's being buried underground when the recovery hits. So let's talk about the first one. Most people didn't have $1,000 saved for a rainy day when Valentine's Day happened earlier this year. And now, we're going through the summer months as we record this, and we couldn't have handled a financial drizzle, but we got a massive financial downpour when people lost their jobs to the tune of 35 million people as of this recording and can't pay their bills, and we're having to rely on government bailouts. That's a disaster. That's an absolute like end of the financial world as we know it kind of moment. But on the other side, if you were lucky enough to still have a job and maybe you even were, you know, all invested in real estate, let's say, or the stock market, and you have no cash, you don't have a lot of oxygen right now because who's going to be buying and selling? Who's going to be, ready to hand you some cash for your new opportunities that I believe are going to be coming, whether it's 6 months from now when bankruptcies start hitting. Mason, I know you're familiar with that. So it's when it's the people who are sitting on cash that I believe are going to be most prepared to participate in the upward bound recovery period, whatever your asset class, whether it's real estate or, hey, if you want to get into the stock market, fine. But whatever your cup of tea is, cash is where you start. That's the powerful platform by which you can take your leap and get into the things that I think will produce the best results for the next decade.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I heard something interesting that was a lot of people that do have dry powder, like certain funds, waiting for like the best opportunity. They keep waiting and waiting until they finally find it. But there was so many other people with dry powder that they're all chasing after, and it kills the margin. And so, ironically, it's not a good deal anymore. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I would say don't jump just when you first smell blood in the water, so to speak. This is going to take a long time. You don't just create, however many tens of millions of jobs that we lost in the last quarter. That doesn't just come back. And the spending power of those tens of millions of Americans doesn't just reappear. So we're going to be continuing to unfold this financial crisis. It's like we're watching a train wreck in slow motion. So if you're sitting on your sidelines right now, it's okay. Don't feel like you have to wait for the final deal to be had, and don't feel like you have to wait for the bottom of the market to make your first deal. Make a few mistakes, but these are one of those handful of times in each of our lifetimes. Maybe this is the biggest one that you'll ever experience in your lifetime, to see opportunity arise if you're prepared for it. And unfortunately, too few of us are. And so you don't have to necessarily get every deal. There's going to be a lot of them, I believe, over the next year that come across our desk if we have the eyes to see.
Yeah. And I think it also depends on when the government stimulus packages kind of dry up and reality sets in. Nothing's propped up anymore.
Yep. You're saying I'm not going to get my check for the rest of my life. It's going to dry up. I have to actually go out and work and find a passive income streams again. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something they did say about Social Security, and I don't even know about that anymore. So, but yeah, I feel like you have to create your own income streams, just like you said. So.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it's cash is trash was last year's mantra. I think, cash flow is king is this year's mantra. And, those with opportunity funds and dry powder, as you said, and eyes to see the deals, and who can not just buy because you're getting the Corona discount, but those that are able to make the purchases because of smart analytics and making smart choices and doing things that are, to your point, scalable, will have an absolute story to tell their grandchildren someday.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, let's back up a little bit. Maybe certain listeners aren't familiar with you and your background, so why don't we just give them a high level and what brought you to this wealth of knowledge you just shared with us and brought you to lake growth, and what's been your experience in investing in real estate and all that?
Sure, I'll pull down the fire hose a little bit there. Sorry about that. Yes, so my name's Mark Willis. I'm a certified financial planner. We have a firm here in Chicago called Lake Growth Financial Services, where we work with clients all over the country who want to build real wealth and do that in a way that's safe and efficient and scalable. I like your word there too on that. Without taking a bunch of unnecessary risks. And we specialize in a strategy that helps people fire their banker and become their own source of financing. So we have some specialty causes, and I believe maybe one of the biggest things that I encountered early on in my own financial life was banks, and specifically student loan companies, were sapping our strength. They were literally pulling a mortgage payment out of my pocket every month for the 3 private school degrees my wife and I had between us. And this was in 2008 and 9 and 10, when we weren't exactly employable with our degrees, and they weren't exactly hiring in this country at that time. So for us, it was a big wake-up call to say, oh, wait a minute, we have to figure this money thing out. And it seems like banks have more control over my money than I have over my own money. To me, it felt like I was working as a slave to the bank for about half the day, at least, because, we were throwing 30, 40, 50% of our income toward our debts at that time to overpay on it, trying to overpay. And somewhere along the way, it was with the help of many kind and patient mentors of ours that we realized that paying cash to pay off our debt was not the answer. Just being debt free was not the answer that we were looking for. So my wife and I started looking for strategies that could help us actually build wealth on the debt that we were trying to pay off. How could we do something like financial jujitsu, where we actually paid the debt off and build real wealth at the exact same time? And that's sort of where we stumbled across some of these self-banking strategies that we talk about now with our clients.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely something I want to get into, this self-banking. Why don't you discuss that a little bit? What do you mean by that? And I think you also mentioned you can be like your own source of financing. So let's just go into that more.
Sure. Well, let me start at 30,000 feet, then we'll come all the way down to the runway. So again, I would ask anyone who is listening to just simply pull the car over and take 5 minutes to answer this question, because I can't do it for you. No one can. But this question, I think, will be more valuable to you than anything else we talk about on this show, on this episode. And that question is, what do you want your money to do for you? Nice and simple. What do you want your money to do for you? And if you had a magic wand where you could just wave a magic wand, if you were Pope of money for the day and could wave a magic wand and create a brand new financial instrument, financial vehicle, what kind of characteristics, what kind of attributes would you want it to have? And I'll give a few examples. I kind of did this for my own money. I wanted my money to have a good competitive rate of return, at least beating inflation. I wanted it to have some sort of predictable and competitive guarantees. I wanted it to be safe so I could go find it if I needed it for any reason. Mason, I wanted it to be accessible, meaning I could get it without penalties or having to beg a banker for it or having to go through a bunch of hoops or paperwork or underwriting or any of that. I didn't want to have early withdrawal penalties. I didn't want it to be exposed to lawsuits, since I knew I wanted to do real estate in my career. I didn't want it to be necessarily taxed in the future. I kind of saw the handwriting on the wall that taxes likely are going to go up in this country. So I wanted something that would be able to grow and then be available for me tax-free in the future. That was kind of that's probably not the entire list, but that was sort of my own answer to that question. So Mason, what about you? What do you want your money to do for you? If you could just paint that picture for us.
I want it to, kind of the reason I started this podcast and getting into commercial real estate is just being able to take myself out of the equation. I hate this 1-for-1 ratio of, putting in some work and then you get something back. I want my money to be growing exponentially beyond any amount of hours I'd be able to put into that activity. And also have it be predictable. I could plug it all into the stock market, but I wake up tomorrow and COVID happens and it plunges, and then it goes back up and I don't know what's going on.
Right.
So should I jump off of a roof today? I don't know. Let's ask me tomorrow. I hate that feeling. Yeah. And actually, back in my stock market trading days, I also got into stock options. And so once you start levering it, it's just super magnified. And I understand why people just, professional option traders, sometimes literally jump off a roof because they lose everything in a flash, and that's it.
Yeah. Well,
you make a fortune, you lose a fortune, and then some.
Sad but true. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's my long-winded answer to your question.
That's a great answer. So leverage, yes. You want your money to go out and capture more money so it can work for you rather than you have to work for it. You want it to scale. It's a great title of your show. You want your money to scale. This 1-to-1, I'll give you 8 hours of my finite human life and you give me a little trinket that I can go spend today and have to go do it all over again tomorrow. That sounds like, torture. Just trading time for money. What's that old quote? Life is like a roll of toilet paper. The more you use it, the faster it goes. And the same is true with our money, I'd say. The more you use it, the faster it goes. And if we're not constantly finding leverage points and ways to scale our cash and to get passive income, to have that river of money, I think that, we're going to be trapped on the hamster wheel. So, I think that's a really, really good way to look at it, and some sort of predictable outcome on your cash. So anyway, the idea of banking was, I wanted the one thing, this comes from Gary Keller, but I wanted the one thing I could do with my money to be implemented so that everything else I did with money in my financial life was either easier or unnecessary. So again, the question, what is the one thing you could do with your money such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? So think about retirement. What could I do with my money to make retirement, whatever that word means for you, easier or make it unnecessary? What about paying for your kids' school? Easier or unnecessary? What's the one thing I could do with my money so that I could give my kids through college in a way that's easier or unnecessary? Or passive income, or leave my day job, or have the life of financial freedom that I want? What can I do with my money so that it's easier or unnecessary to handle all the other things in my life? I was looking for that small hinge, Mason, that swings the big door in my life. I don't know if that resonates or not, but when I was looking at 400 plus financial vehicles as I was going through my CFP training, I was disappointed with all of them. And if you look at like an IRA, a 401k, a brokerage account, your personal home, bank savings accounts, CDs, annuities, hedge funds, all of it, it was just disappointing to me. Where's the risk? It's on my shoulders. Are there guarantees? No, except that maybe the Wall Street guy is going to get paid, right, for his assets under management. Are there penalties to access my money? Yes. 401ks, I'm going to get penalized and whacked if I try to get my money out. CDs, yes, they're going to penalize my interest. Annuities, yes, there's surrender charges. Can I get my money out? Not really, not without getting penalized. Is my money protected from lawsuits and creditors? No, across the board. They're going to be able to access my 401k if I get sued. And in real estate, we all are, is the sad truth, right? So that's just kind of a short answer. I mean, we could keep going. Tax deferral. Well, yes, money grows tax deferred in an IRA and a 401k, but is that really what I want? If I think taxes are going to be higher in the future, and then I get taxed on that tax deferred 401k, right? What's the word deferral mean? It just means put off into the future. Well, if putting off a root canal just so it gets worse, that doesn't sound like a good idea to me. Why would I put my taxes into the future if I think tax rates are going to be higher? So these were sort of my own, ponderings, I guess. And I know I'm going on and on that, but any other feedback or thoughts, Mason, on kind of my ramblings there of what I was finding, my disappointment, I guess, with traditional financial vehicles?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the same frustrations that I've encountered, and probably a lot of other people as well. But could you go into a little bit more depth about the source of financing? Is that like setting up checkbook IRAs or solo 401ks to use your own money in deals? And can you go more concrete examples?
Yeah, let's land the plane a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I was disappointed with what I found as I was doing my CFP training. We looked at 400 plus financial vehicles. One of them did stand out to me as something that I had never really considered. I guess I had a bias toward it. And Mason, of all things, it was a dividend-paying whole life insurance contract that did all of what I wanted my cash to do for me. So dividend-paying whole life insurance, augmented and modernized, not for commissions and death benefit, but for cash accumulation. So I'll kind of zip over a few things here, and then I'll talk about how it can help us become our own source of financing. So a dividend-paying whole life insurance contract, now they've been around for 200 years, but if you can modernize it with paid-up addition riders, you'll be able to flood the policy's cash value with money in the first month. Not have to wait 3-4 years like the old-fashioned whole life insurance that Dave Ramsey loves to hate on and Susie Orman loves to hate on. So this has a liquid cash value within 30 days of starting the policy, and 8 to 40 times as much cash as old-fashioned whole life insurance does, according to my research. It cuts the commissions down by about 70%. Death benefit expenses come down as well. We're trying to keep those as low as possible. When money goes into a whole life insurance, again, what do I want my money to do for me is the question. When it goes into life insurance, it does a few things really well. It grows, guaranteed, on a predictable schedule, outside of the stock market, outside of real estate, every single year. Can't do anything to stop it. It's uninterrupted compound growth for the rest of our life. It's in the contract. There's nothing really we can get around that growth from. It's like it's just the outcomes are determined. They're printed on a schedule, and you sign your name, and the insurance company promises that you're going to have more cash value this year than you had last year. So that's the first thing. 2, life insurance for the last 107 years, as long as we've had an income tax system in this country, life insurance has been income tax free on the death benefit. And also you can access the cash value without any taxes due as well. So it's a tax-free instrument, much like a Roth IRA. If it's designed correctly, you can get the money out of the policy without taxes due as well under current law. And it's been that way for 107 years. So that's really interesting. It's a lot like a Roth IRA, but without all the restrictions of a Roth IRA. So Mason, a Roth IRA, depending on who your listeners are, they may not even be able to contribute to a Roth due to their income. And even if you can contribute, we're talking about a whopping $6,000 a year that you can put into a Roth IRA. So to me, that's not going to solve our retirement crisis, right? With these life insurance contracts, much like they call them rich person Roth sometimes. You can look that up. But a life insurance contract can be really funded at whatever level you want. $6,000 a year, $60,000 a year, $600,000 a year can go into these policies. And again, it's flooding that cash value, liquid money that you can use for, and the third thing is financing. So you can use the policy for financing all your major purchases in your lifetime, your cars, vacations, that's fine, but also things like your children's college, or to your point, syndications and real estate deals that you want to get into. Why would I use a bank that doesn't have my best interest at heart when I can keep the banking function in-house and be my own source of financing? What if I could recapture the interest that's currently going to my mortgage company and be my own source of financing instead? That's a great way to provide added deal profits. It increases the IRR of your deals. It keeps the money in your pocket or your partners, your investor partners' pockets. And it maybe even more importantly, it remains, you remain in control of your deal. There's no bank forcing you to repay a payment to yourself. When you're the banker, you can borrow. So with these policies, Mason, you can borrow against the policy, and you control the repayment plan if you want to have one. When you borrow against the policy, you can skip a payment or 6 payments, and the insurance company is not going to call you at dinner time and make you pay or wreck your credit or publicly announce on your credit report that you are delayed. No, it's a private loan with a company, and no one knows besides you and the insurance company that that loan exists. So that's a way to be your own source of financing using a very old-fashioned tool, of all things, dividend-paying whole life insurance.
Okay, and how does that grow? Does it ever grow in value, or is it only growing based on how much cash you're contributing to that policy? How does that work?
Yeah, well, think of it sort of like, it's a contract. So if you think about real estate is a contract, right? If we don't have a contract, then all we have is squatters' rights, right? So we think of real estate as like, I can touch it, I can see it, I can put my hand on the brick wall. But the truth of the matter is, all we really have is the right via contract law to that property down the street or our personal home. Everything else is built on contracts, right? So life insurance is a contract. With the stock market, there is no real wealth, right? It's paper wealth up, paper loss down. But with life insurance contracts, they have a printed schedule that you sign your name on that says the insurance company is guaranteeing you to have more of your death benefit if you walk away this year than you would have had last year. It's almost like your walkaway cash. Think of it like a net present value of your death benefit today. So if my death benefit's $1 million, they're seeing me get older every year. Uh-oh, Mark's about to have another birthday. Let's give him some more cash to walk away. And so my cash surrender value goes up, 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 because the insurance company is saying, well, hey, Mark's more likely to, graduate on us this year. So let's give him a little bit more guaranteed cash value this year, because we have to pay his family that $1 million if he dies this year. So that's how the actuarial science of life insurance works. They've already got my death benefit kind of ready to go for my family. And if I die, they have to come up with that. Usually in about 2 or 3 weeks, the death benefit is paid out. So they keep that in very cash or cash equivalent type assets. But if I decide, hey, I want my money as a check in the mail, or I want to borrow against it, it's already collateralized. It's already liquidated. It's already ready to go. And each year I live, I get a guaranteed increase in my cash. So it has nothing to do with the markets. It has everything to do with mortality credits and actuarial science.
Okay, and is there a limit that you could borrow up against? Like I know 401ks, you could borrow up to 50% of the value, for example.
Yeah. Most insurance company, again, it comes down to the right company. You don't want to do this with just any whole life policy. But the companies that I would recommend are going to let you borrow roughly 85 to 90% of your cash value for any reason.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, definitely going to have to look into that more. And maybe after the episode, you could send me a link to put in the episode description for people to learn more about it. So it's definitely interesting. So how does that compare to like a checkbook IRA or solo 401k? Because I know that's something really popular that at least passive investors will utilize to invest in syndications.
Yeah. Well, there's a few things that are similar and a few things that I would say are categorically different. So I don't mind. Again, where do you want your money to live? I don't know the answer to that question. So self-directed IRA, let's just use that as an example. And we'll call it a bank on yourself type whole life policy. Like a policy that we've been describing, a bank on yourself type policy, you're directly investing when you have a self-directed IRA. So you could borrow against your life insurance and put it into real estate. You can use your self-directed checkbook IRA and directly invest into real estate. That's about where the similarity ends. With self-directed IRAs, you cannot do self-dealing with a checkbook IRA or solo 401k. I've used my policy this year for paying my taxes and putting a down payment on a personal residence and, investing in fixing up our house, so I could fix my own kitchen with my whole life policy. I can send my daughter to college with my whole life policy. Can't do any of that with a self-directed IRA. Okay. Also, again, tax deferred. Most IRAs and 401ks are tax deferred, meaning we're going to be paying taxes on all the income that we make. If we're making 10% a year on our real estate deals in our IRA, we have a partner in that real estate deal, and his name is Uncle Sam. There's a reason why they call him the IRS, right? Put those words together. The IRS, you get theirs. So when you take money out of an IRA, you didn't make 10% on that IRA deal, on that real estate deal. You made 10 minus, your tax rate, 40%. So you made 6%, right? So I don't see the self-directed IRA and solo 401k as either or. It's a both and. Think of your life insurance contract as a non-qualified supplement to whatever else you might be doing with your real estate deals.
Okay. That's definitely interesting. And I saw in your profile about tax diversifying strategies. So have we already covered all of that, or is that just a whole nother direction that you could discuss?
No, let's kind of link that in. So again, where do we think taxes are going in the future? I don't have a crystal ball, but Mason, if you just had to, it is your money at the end of the day. It's all of our individual choice, right? We can either pay tax on the seed or the harvest. The seed or the harvest. So what's the best bet we have for where taxes are headed? What do you think, just out of curiosity? Over your lifetime, you think taxes are going down or up?
I think up. It's hard to say. I think they were actually higher previously, and then they did go down. But then as we kind of converge with the socialist Europe, that's an older part of the world, maybe we'll start to see higher taxes like they have already.
Mm-hmm. So if I had the choice, and I'm in a, let's say currently we are in a low tax bracket, and historically speaking, this is the lowest it's been probably in either of our lifetimes, Mason. I don't know how old you are exactly, but we all see, and there's actually now a specific month and day when taxes will go up. It's January 1st, 2026. So about 5.5 years from now. At that point, we all get a tax raise if Congress doesn't act, and Congress is pretty good at not acting, right? So over our lifetime, if I wait to pay my taxes, my 401k, my IRA, my real estate with 1031 exchanges, if I'm deferring all my taxes with those 1031 exchanges or my traditional IRA, my solo 401k, I've unintentionally created a ticking tax time bomb on my money because I deferred my taxes when I was in a lower bracket today and then let it grow to a big number. And then I'm going to be taxed at a higher rate on that bigger number. What sense does that make? It doesn't make sense. Mathematically, if taxes just go up by 1%, it would be better to have all my money in a Roth or a life insurance style plan. The only two vehicles that I'm aware of that allow us to have tax-free income in retirement. There's a third way you can take tax-free income in retirement, but it may be beyond the scope of our podcast here, which does get into more tax diversification strategies, using the buy, borrow, die strategy that's popular on Bigger Pockets. But maybe we'll leave that for another episode.
Okay, got it. Is it just too convoluted to just hit it like a skim over at a 30,000 foot level?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Totally blowing my mind right now. Again, if I had a mixture of several different tax-free income streams, you could live in a 0% tax bracket in your retirement years. So even if tax rates double, 0 times anything is still 0. Okay. So if I had my money in a couple of life insurance policies, which are income tax-free, if I had another source of money coming from a HECOM loan, which is a reverse mortgage, I've got tax-free income flowing from the bank for me to live in my own home. That's tax-free. If I had a Roth IRA or if I had even a traditional IRA under the standard deduction, I'm going to have a stream of tax-free income as long as my money is coming from Roth IRAs or I only take taxable income under the standard deduction. The trouble with real estate is if you're building up a real estate empire right now in your working years or your younger years, and you're taking all these deductions and you're cost segregating and you're depreciating the assets, right around the time you retire, all of your money is going to become taxable to you. All that rent money that you're collecting, it's all going to be taxable at that point. So we have a choice. We have to 1031 exchange it, I guess, and keep deferring it into the future and hope we die before we take any rent ever again. It's a hard thing. So real estate does kind of back me into a corner as an investor with living in the 0% income tax bracket. What you could do instead is one, I think a lot of folks like Ken McElroy and a bunch of folks on Bigger Pockets have talked about, is buy, borrow, die. Such a morbid way to describe it, but you buy your real estate, you borrow against it. Loans are tax-free. They're not considered income. So you can borrow for your lifestyle and your real estate rent check just goes to pay down the loan, but then you borrow against that policy or you borrow against the real estate. And then when you pass away, it steps up in basis to leave to your heirs or to your estate. That's just a way to create without getting too into the weeds there, Mason, I'd say the best thing you can do is think carefully about whether or not, one, you think taxes are going up in the future, and two, what's half a dozen tax-free income streams you can generate today that you can live on tomorrow. There's an old quote, nothing is more useless than making more efficient something that should not be done at all. Nothing is more useless than making more efficient something that should not be done at all. I think that's helpful for this podcast. I mean, scalable real estate investing. Don't scale things that don't matter, right? If I'm going to create a massive 401k, I'm employing all the awesome stuff Mason teaches you guys on this podcast, but it's going into a taxable 401k, and then I get blown up with my tax rate, and I have an incredibly high, I'm worth 10 million bucks, but now all of it's taxable, and I have to give 80% of it to the IRS. Well, what was the point? Unless I really love paying my taxes. I'm happy to pay what I owe the IRS, but I am not happy to leave them a tip. That's kind of my philosophy of life for taxes.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and it's I feel like somewhat of a paradigm shift. So gonna have to let this digest and rethink all these different 401k accounts I have.
Sorry, bro.
No, it's all right. It is what it is. But I know we're coming to the head of the hour here and have other calls to jump on, but I want to ask just a couple more quick questions. Could you discuss a little bit about like your income maximization strategies and going upstream financially? What does that mean?
Sure. Well, and we have a podcast that dives deep into all of this. So if folks want to hear more, go to Not Your Average Financial Podcast. We have mini series on the income maximization strategy. I have other mini series on the bank on yourself concepts we've been talking about. But going upstream financially is, I think, something that we can all do, small or large. You start your life out and maybe you're a renter, and then you become, let's say, a homeowner, and then you become a house hacker, and then you become a landlord, and then you become a multifamily or a storage unit syndicator, and then you become a big investor, investing passively in other deals. And then if you can go all the way up to the fountainhead, if you can go to the very top of the mountain, you start out at the Gulf Stream, right? And you go all the way up to the top of the mountain. What's up there are the bankers. And so they start the flow of cash that flows down to the rest of us. And like a salmon, you can move upstream financial with your decisions. You can certainly live a good life in the estuaries of the salmon, of the renter's kind of paradise. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to become an investor and find streams of income and moving upstream financially, for that life, you'll find more control. You'll find more, abundance. You'll be able to help influence the world for good. Again, money is nothing more than just influence. And so I would rather good people rather than bad people have influence in this world. So, moving upstream financially to a point where you're either investing in other people's deals or you're the bank for other people's deals. So we've been talking about how you could be your own source of financing. But why not be a private money lender to other people in their ways and in their investment deals? I've used my policy to loan to other people and get a yield on that policy loan, right? So the policy, we didn't talk much about this, Mason, but when I borrow from these life insurance contracts we've been describing, they'll continue to grow uninterrupted, even on the capital I borrow. So let's say I've got 100 grand in cash value, and I loan you 30,000 bucks, and you put that to work in one of your awesome deals, in one of your awesome syndications. You're doing a great job getting 12, 18, 30% or whatever you might give us as an investor. But my policy over here is continuing to earn the same growth and dividends as if I had not taken the $30,000 out. So I've just increased my yield without any additional risk. And you've got the cash over in your pocket to help us with our real estate investments. So it's a great way to move upstream financially when you can not only be your own banker, but be everybody else's as well.
Yeah, that's definitely very interesting. And yeah, sometimes it makes sense to do that instead of playing on the equity side, but also just on the debt side. So it makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't do this. Guys, I do want to mention this too, Mason, very quickly. Life insurance is one topic we've been talking about. Don't just go do this just because you heard it on this show. There's a lot that goes into it. We are a full financial firm, and we sit down with folks one-on-one to see if this or other strategies are a good fit. So keep your eye out, look for Bank on Yourself. It's it's kind of a quality standard when you're looking into this. I'd be happy to chat with folks if you want, but there's a lot of knockoffs out there. A lot of folks that read a book or two or watched a couple of YouTube videos and said, and they have a life insurance license. You don't want to just work with anybody who, has hung their shingles, so to speak, to set these up. So keep an eye out for that as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess some people might purport to know what they're doing, but they maybe have less experience and don't do things right for you.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of these tax advantages messed up. I've seen it grow a lot slower, commissions paid out too high, wrong policy, lots of interest paid on the loans, lots of things that can go wrong if you don't engineer them correctly from the start.
Yeah, it's definitely good to keep in mind. Okay. So for the last question, if people want to get in touch with you, I'll definitely put your website link into the episode description, but what else? What are some other ways for people to contact you?
Best website is notyouraverageFinancialPodcast.com. And that's our show name too, Not Your Average Financial Podcast. And if folks want to reach out to us and schedule a time to chat, just to chat for 15 minutes, go to growmorewealth.com. That's growmorewealth.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much. This has been an enlightening episode. Going to take all this to heart, and thank you for your time.
My pleasure, Mason. Keep up the great work.